Mary Jane Harper Cried Last Night is a 1977 film directed by Alan Reisner. It's written by Joanna Lee and it stars Suzanne Day as Rowena Harper and Natasha Ryan as her daughter Mary Jane. And this is a really powerful film. And for the most part, there won't be any spoilers. If I want to go into spoiler detail, I'm not sure if I will. I will give a disclaimer beforehand. And this is the kind of story that really appeals to me because when done right, I feel these films are so important. And I'm so glad that this came on my radar. I'd never heard of it. But then I'm trying to watch every Rhea Perlman film, and she's in this. She plays a character called Judy. And I'm so glad that I had a reason to watch this. Mary Jane is admitted to hospital because she's fallen out of her crib. It's worth noting that she's 4 years old. She's definitely too old to be in a crib, and there is no reason that anybody can see why she should be in a crib. But she tries to climb out and fractures her arm and goes to hospital. And while in the hospital, there is some suspicion that she is being mistreated by her mother. And not everybody really wants to pursue this as a line of inquiry. And it's unclear initially whether this is the case, but as we start to see the film progressing, we see Rowena responding to her daughter in very aggressive ways. And I don't want to say too much about that, but the film definitely highlights how children experiencing abuse can fall through the cracks. And how adults in children's lives can sometimes really let them down. And I'm not just talking about Rowena here, but I don't want to say too much more about that. But I think it's a really powerful look, first of all, at the fact that if you have a suspicion, people need to listen to that. And obviously this was in the 70s. Things are slightly different now, I hope, at least. I know that there are different procedures for this kind of thing, and I feel like healthcare is a lot more alert to the warning signs now, I'm hoping. But certainly, even today, this is still a really important topic to discuss. But not just in terms of medical professionals seeing the warning signs, but also how others around the parents might be able to identify these warning signs, and also significantly what a parent can do if they find that they are in a situation where they are just not able to cope. And I love the fact that the film doesn't shame Rowena for not being able to cope, and it does help to highlight some techniques that may help. And I won't go into too much detail about those, but I think the film has a tremendous amount to offer and a lot of value. And even today, I think it's still an exceptionally important film. It is very well done. For the most part, there was one thing that I think wasn't great, and I'll discuss that with a spoiler warning in a moment. But in general, I think they did a great job of handling this narrative. I think they did it exceptionally sensitively, and Rowena has a really strong backstory as well. She is sometimes, understandably, not a likable character, but as we dig deeper into her and her backstory, she definitely becomes a more well-developed character with a lot of complexity, and I think she's a very well-written character. And the performance from Susan Day is absolutely fantastic. Just for information, Rhea Perlman plays a character called Judy, who is hosting a routine group in her home where mothers can come together and talk about how difficult it is to parent, and some of the difficulties they face with children constantly crying and how they might lash out in response to that. And we don't get to see too much of that. I think we could have seen a bit more of that to get different perspectives or different angles on the same kind of situation. But what we got was still pretty good. And for the most part, I can't fault the film. I think it's doing an amazing job telling this story with a lot of different perspectives and a lot of failings from adults in children's lives who are meant to protect them. And I don't mean Rowena in that case. I mean adults in positions of authority or adults who are supposed to look out for the child but ignore things that are happening. Again, I don't want to give too much information about that by spoiling the narrative, but I think it does a great job of showcasing this and also showcasing the failings of some medical professionals and other professionals who, again, should be able to help, but don't for various reasons. And the narrative does present these reasons, but again, I won't go into it. But the point there is that there are a lot of layers to this story and a lot of really powerful takeaways, particularly for the time, but I think, unfortunately, it's still relevant today. So I absolutely recommend it. It's not the easiest watch. It's obviously dealing with quite a heavy topic, but I feel like there is so much value in this film that it's absolutely worth watching. And in general, I can't fault it. I think it did an amazing job. I will say now, though, with a spoiler warning, this is the last thing that I want to say about the film. This is one thing that I didn't think was done very well. So this is a spoiler, kind of. So I don't think the ending was done very well. I think what happened, and I won't say what happens, but I think what happens with Rowena and Mary Jane was powerful. I think it was well done that moment, but I was left wanting to know what the aftermath was. I feel like it would have been important to explain what would happen next and the consequences of this, and to also draw a little bit more emotion out of it, because it ends very, very abruptly. And I get what they were going for. They were going for a dramatic closing line. They wanted to end very suddenly to make it impactful. But while that is important, I feel like that scene, those final lines or that final statement would have been powerful, or as powerful, even if we had another scene or two afterwards to kind of wrap things up. So the ending was very, very rushed. And while I can kind of understand what they were going for, I don't think it was the right decision. But that aside, I thought Mary Jane Harper Cried Last Night was a very powerful film. And although it isn't the easiest watch, I do think it's one that's definitely worth checking out.